Yo, Bo, welcome to another episode of In the Life with MightyFan on this day after Super Bowl 58. Boy, what a game. Uh, that was a game that I was glad the Eagles were not a part of. I don't know what I would have done in a game like that. It was the longest Super Bowl in the history of the Super Bowl. And yeah, someone's got to win, someone's got to lose. And the Chiefs, again, they do it again. Amazing, man. What a dynasty they have become. And Big Red does it again. Andy, tip the hat to you. Look, he cut his teeth with the Eagles. Unfortunately, wasn't able to win here. Did get to one Super Bowl, got to numerous NFC title games, but really, turned the fate of the franchise around for the better. And he's done an awful lot with Kansas City. He has really done some great things there. And it just continued last night. Another win in a Super Bowl for them. Patrick Mahomes. That's one of those teams, man. When you have a dynasty and you're playing that team, and I know, it's like anymore. You look at these dynasties, and yeah, my Philly teams have not been that, but you marvel at it because this day and age, you have free agency, you have caps, you have all these different things. It's so hard, to have them. And you look at the teams in recent years, right? You look at what the Patriots did, what the Red Sox did, what the Warriors in the NBA, the Lightning, what they've become in the NHL, the Blackhawks. We ran into them too. The Patriots we know about, the Chiefs we know about, right? The Astros we know about. All these teams that have just stayed on top for so long, it's hard. As we all know, it's very hard. Sports is a hard thing to do to win a championship, and these teams that do it seemingly every year, or just about every year, it almost like they almost make it look easy. We know it's not. And the Chiefs had a hard road at it this year. They had to go on the road. They did. They won. The great former Rockets head coach Rudy Tomjanovich said once, and it's so true. Never underestimate the heart of a champion. And teams have had to find that out. We had to find that out. The 49ers have found that out a couple times now. It's hard, man. All those teams that Brady beat, the Patriots beat. That's why when we won ours, and I know it's only been one, but it meant a ton just to get our first, but to do it against that team at the height of their powers just makes it more special because you know how hard it is. You see these other teams fail when they try to do it, right? Um, and to get it, and it's like you have to play a perfect game, and you have to kind of play above yourself, to win those games against those teams. Now, in the NFL, obviously it's different because you just have to win one game. You have to beat that team once, right? And in the other sports, it's a series. It's a best of seven. You have to beat that team four times. It's so tough. It's so tough just to beat them a couple times, right? Four times, that's really tough if you're playing one of those dynasty-like teams. In the NFL, you just have to win one game. You have to be so special for one game. And you have to keep your foot on the pedal. You can't let it up. That's why I'm glad that we had the coach we had at the time, Doug Peterson, and the players that we had, backup players. They just kept their foot on the pedal. Everything they did worked in that game. Maybe not so much defensively, besides for the strip sack by good old BG, but offensively, it just clicked. And they did things like the Philly special, like all these going for it on fourth downs, converting. It just made that game what it was, and that's how you beat a dynasty. It's stuff like that. You can't make those mental mistakes. And you looked at last night's game, and the 49ers just made too many mental mistakes. The penalties. I know Kansas City had some too. Kansas City turned the ball over a couple times, the fumble, the interception. But San Francisco wasn't able to capitalize on those turnovers. The Chiefs did. And that was the difference in the game. You look at that game, you look at the defensive, a close game like it was, what was the difference? Mental mistakes that the 49ers made. The punt muff, right? The extra point miss, which was huge, right? Enabled the Chiefs to come down the field and tie the game with a field goal instead of going for a touchdown. It's little differences like that. In overtime, even San Francisco electing to receive instead of kick off. And then they said they forgot about the rules later. I mean, okay. But it's little things like that that just open the door a crack, and a team like Kansas City is going to kick that door down. if you do that. We know it from last year, right? The Jalen Hurts fumble in the first half, but how huge a play that was. It turned the momentum around, right? In the second half, I mean, giving up a big punt return. And how ironic it was that the game-winning touchdown that the Chiefs scored was very similar to what they scored against the Eagles to have the go-ahead touchdown, and there was that penalty called, right, at the late in the fourth quarter. You can't have mistakes like that. But to beat a team like the Chiefs, like the Patriots back in the day, or those other dynasty-like teams, you have to play a perfect game as much as you can. You can't allow little mistakes. And unfortunately for the faithful, I mean, they did make too many mistakes at the end, and it cost them the game in a close game, in an epic battle. You had players getting hurt, coming back. I mean, they left it all on the field. And the one thing I will say about the 49ers, and I know it's ironic. It really is, because, I mean, the faithful, I know, we've become a little bit of a rivalry with them, and they had jokes for us last year. The social media, all the Chiefs stuff, and they were all chiefed up last year. It was Kansas City West, more West. It was almost like they forgot about Super Bowl 54, and they're all chief. Here's Mahomes. Yeah, they had jokes. Their morning show last year with the Cry Eagles Cry after the game, they were all jovial. The celebrations. We heard a bit of their morning show today. It wasn't very jovial today. There were no jokes. We may have had a few, getting back at them, getting even, but yeah, no jokey joke this time. There wasn't any Cry Eagles Cry. It was their own misery and wallowing in their own miseries, right? It wasn't a happy day today. It kind of turned around. It was against the same team. Eagle fans may have had some stuff to say today. May have turned it around. We don't forget anything. Remember, we don't forget. Well, one of us beat the Chiefs this season. We did in Kansas City. The stakes were a little different in that game. I get it. But at any rate, as I was saying, it's tough. And when you play a game like that and you lose, it is tough. I mean, I had to feel it last season with the Eagles losing the way they did. In Super Bowl 39 as well. To another dynasty in the Patriots. Again, that's what made it like a vindifying win. I can't even speak right. Vindifying win in Super Bowl 52. It was our first title, but it came against the team that beat us, in Super Bowl 39. And it was like we beat that amazing dynasty. Now, the Chiefs are building on theirs. And, I mean, when all's said and done, I mean, they might have an even greater dynasty than the Patriots. It's hard to say that now. There's still work for them to do. They're still 3 behind as far as this current Chiefs team goes. Obviously, they've won their 4th title in franchise history. The other was won in the 60s. But, it's something, man. And what that team's been able to do, and they just keep on top, overcoming so much. I mean, you look at that team. You look at how they've rebuilt that team. I think they said there's one player on defense left from Super Bowl 54, from their first title of current years. Jones. That's it. They rebuilt the whole defense. You have players on offense that, obviously they've had Mahomes and Kelsey and maybe a couple of the other receivers, but, I mean, they let go Tyreek Hill, and they haven't missed a beat, right? Maybe the offense looks a little different without that home run hitter, but you see that they still are able to do it, right? They've lost offensive linemen, and it just hasn't seemed to hurt them, right? The constant, obviously, is Mahomes, Andy Reid, and Travis Kelce, and what Andy's been able to do to rebuild different players, and they don't draft high. I mean, every year, it's like the Patriots. Every year, they're always in the back of the draft on the rounds, but they're able to hit on just about every player they draft. And that's scouting, and that's coaching. You got to coach these players up, and that's what makes a difference for these teams, for these franchises. And Andy's always done a great thing. One of the things I always knew about Andy is Andy was always able to surround himself with talent at the coaching position. And you look at his coaching tree, and he came from the coaching tree of Oh God, I'm blanking on his name from Seattle, Green Bay, Mike Holmgren back in the day, right? And he learned, he learned being the quarterback coach on that team, and when they won the Super Bowl over the Patriots, right, and they got back to another. And Andy, came over to the Eagles, became a head coach, kind of cut his teeth, learned what it was to be a head coach, had some success, had some failure, obviously, not really getting over the hump, but it's a hard thing to do. But those Eagles teams, I mean, they were some of the best I've ever seen. It is a shame they couldn't win, but they produce some household names that we'll always be very fond of around here. Guys that are in the Hall of Fame right now. Guys that are Eagles Hall of Famers, right? Came from Andy, drafted by Andy, or if not, were molded by the coaching staff that he put together there. The Jim Johnsons of the world, right? The Harbaughs, and so forth and so on. And now in Kansas City, you're seeing what he's able to do. Always had that eye for the quarterback, always had that eye for offensive talent. And then always had that eye to who to bring over to put as a defensive coordinator. And Spags has been one of the best. He was here too, and obviously he's had success in New York with the Giants. Now back with Andy with the Chiefs, winning Super Bowls. Being a pest as a defensive coordinator with those defenses, getting pressure on the opposing quarterbacks. It's tough, man. It's tough to beat that team, and they were able to put that defense together pretty quick. With a lot of young players, and they had their growing pains last year, and they still won. It didn't really matter, right? And then obviously they put it all together this season to have one of the best defenses in the league, and that's why they won. It wasn't just because their offense is what they did defensively, right? So, you marvel at what they've been able to accomplish. I remember Andy when he was a younger coach. I reminisced today of my little run-in with him many, many years ago. I told my boss this today. I said, I could always say two things about Andy. I was at his first playoff victory, which he won on New Year's Eve against Tampa Bay, 21-3, which was his first playoff win as a head coach, and the Philadelphia Eagles, of course, at Old Veterans Stadium. And I remember being in line because I asked my dad before that game was played. I said, I want to see a playoff game, for the Eagles. I never went to a playoff game, so we went. And in those days, you can actually go and stand in line outside the stadium, outside the ticket, windows, and get tickets. This is before everything became online. And so we went there. I know I've told this story before, but we went there early on a cold winter morning after the holiday. I think it was between Christmas and New Year's, and I think it may have been like a day or two after Christmas. We're waiting in line, and they had to break the line apart because so many people were there, and they had half the other line go to the other ramp, and it was so cold, so people started bonfires and trash cans, and the fire department came and they put out the fires. But it was so cold that all the water from the hoses froze on the ramps. So then they had to salt the ramps down. And so some of the players actually came. I remember Torrance Small was one of the players that came out and shook hands. And there was Andy. And Andy comes up and he's shaking hands with every single, and it's frigid cold out. And Andy's out there. My dad actually said, he said, because we talked, and he said he's rooting for the Chiefs because he wants to see Andy win again because of he remembered that moment. He remembered Andy coming out and shaking hands with everyone, including my dad and I. Andy comes up to me, and I'm standing there all eagled up, the jacket, the hat, the knit hat, and I have these glasses that had the sunglasses that had the Eagles logo on the lenses, and I'll always remember it. And my dad remembered it, and he's like, Andy comes up to me and he shakes my hand. He says, "Boy, you're a real crazy one, aren't you?" And it was my little run-in with Big Red, but I always will remember that, and I'll always look fondly at that. And he didn't have to do that. He didn't have to come out and shake hands with every single Eagle fan waiting in line to get tickets, but he appreciated all of us for doing it. And he just wanted to show the support, It was going into his first playoff game as a head coach. And Yeah, it is a shame that that Eagles team couldn't win the big one. They only got to the one, losing in '39. But I mean, again, he helped turn the franchise around from being a not very good team to being a team that perennial was one of the better teams in the NFC, was one of the better teams in the league. It's a shame they couldn't, overcome and win, but I mean, he helped turn things around, and Doug Peterson came from his tree, and um, he he basically, the Eagles brass talked to Andy about Peterson, and he recommended him. He said, "This is the guy that should be your head coach." At the time, the Eagles were looking for a head coach after they let Chip go, Chip Kelly, and Andy recommended Doug. Doug came here. Next thing you know, a couple years later, we're Super Bowl champions with Doug Peterson, and unfortunately, that didn't work out. Some years later, but. So Andy had a hand. Andy certainly had a hand in that title. And then when Andy won his first title, we were happy for him because we had gotten ours, and it was only right that Andy got his. Albeit with another franchise. Now he's won a few times, including against us, and it's kind of old hat now. But I'm still happy for him because he paid his dues in this league, and I'm happy to see him have success. I wasn't as happy when we lost to him, but sometimes you're just going to lose to a dynasty team, and that's just how it is. It's hard. Winning is a hard thing, but I do think Andy had a small piece in us winning. There were still players on that Eagles team. There's still players on the Eagles team from when he drafted. I mean, Jason Kelsey, BG, right? Fletcher Cox. These are guys that were drafted, handpicked by Andy back in the day when he was still here. And I know it didn't end well. It was time. It was time for the two to part ways. It was that time. But there was that story. I always remember that Andy had his eyes on Russell Wilson. He wanted to draft Russell Wilson as an Eagles head coach. And he couldn't do it because Seattle leapfrogged the Eagles in the draft to get Russell. And what history would have been different if the Eagles and Andy could have gotten his hands on Russell Wilson for the Eagles? Would Andy have stayed around? Probably, because he had the young quarterback that he could have groomed. I mean, would Russell have won a Super Bowl with the Eagles? Who knows? Would they have had the type of success that they're enjoying with Kansas City? Here if he stayed here and had Russell Wilson, basically like the Mahomes before Mahomes, who knows? It may be. And maybe not, but that's like that story that of the what ifs, that what if that happened, right? And obviously it didn't. Russ was drafted by the Seahawks. He went on to have success with Seattle, won a Super Bowl, right? Got to another one. Probably should have won the other one if they just would have handed the ball off to Marshawn Lynch. But it is what it is, right? It didn't happen. Andy went on to have great success with Kansas City. The Eagles did win. We got to another Super Bowl last season. It didn't win, but we were one of the final two teams standing at the end. But yeah, I mean, and then we go through a season like this, and things kind of went to crap. But that's all part of it. Sports is such a every time you think you have it figured out, you don't. And it's just one of those things. So. To the Niner fans, like I said, I know, like Rez, Bay Area, like I said, Hazor, Angel, others there, I know, and I know how crazy they are for their team as I am with mine. I get it, and I know today's a sad day, but it's also a day to reflect and say what an amazing run you had. I know, believe me, it's a hard thing to lose that game. We've had to see it a couple times here. We did get the one, and I did bring the ring out because for the Super Bowl you do remember the good times, and it is just one, one in the old trophy case, but it still means a lot, and that's something that I did post this on some of the groups on Facebook. Once a champion, always a champion. You can never take it away. As far ago as it might go until we win another, who knows when that might be, but, that memory, it will always be there. And it meant so much because of everything we had to get that. And that's why I tell these other fan bases, right, the ones that maybe well, all right. So Dallas, I'm not as upset, and it's been a long time for them. But even though I know it's been a bit of a rivalry now in recent years, but for the faithful, believe me, these are scars, but it makes you appreciate it more when that time comes. And I do think they have a team that's going to do it. I really do. I talked to Rez. We had a little messenger back and forth yesterday on Instagram. Um, that team is as a rivalry it might be here. I do believe that they're built to win it one of these years, and I don't think it's going to take a long time. I mean, they have a lot of pieces that are there. They're well run. They have. I know the coach has come under fire now. It's kind of funny because Sirianni kind of came under fire here, and now it seems Shanahan's come under some fire in San Francisco with the faithful. But I get it, man. It's hard. I mean, you go from the penthouse to the outhouse real quick, in these leagues sometimes, right? Um, and it's tough. But I do believe they have a team that's going to succeed one of these years, and I don't think it's going to be long. I hope it's not long for the Eagles to get back there, and to succeed again. I would love to see them win again. I mean, I don't think one's enough. It's special. Nothing will ever replace it, but I would love to see them win again. I'd love to see the Phillies win again. I saw them win the one. I'd love to see them win again. I know there's players on this team now that I would love to see win. The nucleus, I think, is there. They just have to do it. I'd love to see the Flyers win a cup. That would be great. The Sixers, I mean, my God, you talk about battle scars. that whole, I mean, we have them in spades, right, with this team. So if they could just get it one of these years, that would be a spectacular thing. And the Union too. I'd like to see them win. I know we came close a few years ago, lost in that. I don't get the rules in soccer. I just don't. But in that tough game against the LAFC team in their stadium. But yeah, I mean, it's tough. And when you live in a city that's so sports centric, like Philly, like the Bay, right, like Chicago, New York, Boston, all these teams, right, these places that are just it's part of the lifeblood. And even places like Kansas City. I mean, obviously, right? They might not have the amount of teams, but they love their teams. They're passionate. It's a big part of the life. It's a big part of one's life. It's a big part of my life. I do the Into Life series, and mainly it's about the collecting, but I'm going to throw sports in there. I'm going to throw Philly sports in because that's part of my life. It's a huge part of my life, right? And it's a tough thing because it's something that's so out of your control, and you wish it was in your control, right? You wish that it was like you could just pick up a video game controller and control the outcomes of some of these games, right? And we can't. All we can do is watch and hope and pray that it goes our way, and a lot of times, certainly here, it goes the other way, right? We don't make that big play, and we don't do the things that we should do to win, right? That's why when we do it means the world. And I've seen it a couple times. I'm happy at least to say I've seen Phillies, I've seen the Eagles, I've seen Villanova win twice, which was a special thing too. But it makes you appreciate it that much more, particularly in the lean years, because you can always kind of go back and say, well, but remember, I did think it was funny. I know I told Rez this. I forget his name, the receiver, Robinson, I think, on the 49ers, was there were two players in the history of the Super Bowl that threw for a touchdown and received a touchdown. It was him and good old Nick Foles. Well, Nick did it in a win. Right, but I think this ring actually says Foles on here, if I'm not mistaken. Oh yeah, there it is. But the Super Bowl MVP of Super Bowl 52, and that's how I kind of knew we were going to win that year because it wasn't perfect. all the backups playing and everything. We're not supposed to win against a great dynasty like the Patriots. We're supposed to be on the losing end again, but not. Like I said, sometimes you just got to be great for one game, one moment, and you'll always remember it. The great the Fog, Fred Shiro said many years ago for the Flyers in the '70s, "Win today and we walk together forever." And it's such a great line because it's so true. You know, the players might come and go, but you'll always be remembered for those great moments, right? Even teams that don't win get remembered, right? The '93 Phillies, the '01 Sixers, right? Even the 2010 Flyers, even last year's Eagles team, right? The '05 Eagles too, with finally getting there, right? And overcoming the NFC Championship game hump, right? Didn't win. Donovan throwing up on the field a few times, but they got there, you know, and it was a run. It was exciting. We should have won. It was a Jacksonville. It was Jacksonadelphia, but it wasn't meant to be, right? They made some mistakes, and it just wasn't meant to be. So believe me, I get it. I know today's a tough day, for the faithful, but I also understand. And Rez said it. He posted it on Instagram. He said it's a day to reflect on the good things that they did. And as hard as it is when you lose, that's really what you can do, right? The 22 Phillies were another one, kind of coming out of nowhere, making that run to the World Series, losing to the Astros. But, that was such an incredible run. First time making the playoffs in how many years? 11 years or whatever it was. The moments, the Hoskins bat spike, and all those. You remember things like that, right? It makes the run what it is, and you have to appreciate it, right? So I know today's a tough day for the faithful, and believe me, I know we're going to have this little rivalry going for a bit, right? As long as the two teams are good. Trust me, that team, that I have a good feeling they'll be back, and maybe the next time you'll make those plays that will win it, and you'll be able to say for the first time in about 30 years that right, that you're champions. And I know it's a franchise that's said 5 times already, and they're the history is well there. The team of the '80s, right, and then '94 they did again. I remember that team. I watched. I saw them win that championship against the Chargers, and Steve Young. Finally exercising some of those demons from the past. It was something to watch that team win it. Obviously, like I said, today is a tough one, but it's still a team that's still going to be there. I don't think they're going away. I don't know about next season. It's tough when you lose the Super Bowl the next year. We know about that this year. It kind of got us. So we'll see about next season, but it's going to be interesting. But I know my Eagles have a lot of work to do themselves. Howie's got to get better. The one thing I'm thinking the whole time I'm watching this game, and it's nothing new. We know we need linebackers, we need safeties, we need cornerbacks. I don't know if it can happen all in one off season, but we need that, and Howie needs to take more note and be better at drafting, because that's the thing. You can't just settle everything in the free agency. You have to draft. You have to hit on draft picks. And that's one of the things that Howie's got to get better at, that this front office has got to get better at, assessing talent on the defensive side of the ball. We have a couple guys, but really it's just not enough. They have to hit on linebacker. They have to hit on safety. They have to hit on corner. You look at some of those players on the Chiefs, and again, they don't draft high. But you look at those, McDuffie and these other guys, they just seem to routinely hit on these guys, right? And then they lose guys, right? They lost to Honey Badger. They lose other guys, but they can do that because they know they can replenish it, right? But the Eagles got to find a way to get some of these guys. Because I'm seeing some of these guys last night hitting these linebackers, and the Warners and who are the Chiefs guys, and it's like, man, I missed that. I want to see that here. I long for those days again. So hopefully, getting Fangio, as an old school defensive minded coach as their DC, hopefully he brings that, here as he's had some good linebackers wherever he's gone over the years. So we kind of need that here. We need to get tough. That's the thing. I did notice Big Dom was at the game yesterday. He was apparently Jeffrey Lurie was there and he invited him. The Big Dom was patrolling the sideline. But that was kind of funny to see that. I'm like, oh, there you go. I saw that on social media. I'm like, huh. I'm like, well, I hope he's not at the 49ers sideline. that wouldn't go very well. Maybe he's there assisting Andy, for old time's sake. He was here when Andy was here, Big Dom, if I'm not mistaken. He's been here a long time. One of the heads of security on the sideline kind of got into it with Mr. Greenlaw this year. Only the Eagles. That's one of those things that can only happen here. But I did enjoy the game. It was just an old school looking football game. I enjoyed it. It was a hell of a game. I didn't know what to think of the game. Like when the two teams got in, I'm like, the team that beat us last year against one of our newer but kind of a rival. Okay, so I don't have any rooting interest, but I just hope it's a good game, and it really that second half it really started turning into something, and it was really something to see. And again, if my team was playing in that game, the nerves. I'm sitting in the recliner. I've just got my feet up. I'm like, yeah, this is the type of game. If the Eagles are playing, this would be this. I don't know. I don't know if I would make it through this one. It was hard enough to get through Super Bowl 52, and then obviously last year, I can't imagine being a Chiefs or Niner fan watching this thing play out, man. But someone had to win and someone had to lose in the Chiefs. Like I said, man, they just find ways, don't they? Boy, they are so tough. I was so impressed with what they did this year. I didn't think they were going to come out of the AFC this year. When they had to go on the road, I'm like, all right, the one thing they've never done was have to play on the road. And boy, they proved it, right? They proved that champion medal. That's so tough. It's tough to get it, and it's even tougher to hold on to it. And some teams are just able to do it, man. And I marvel at that. I wish we can have that 1 year, or one stretch of time. We've come kind of close, right? The Phillies had a run back in 07 to 2011. All right, they won the one, they got back, they lost. They let the Cardinals in that 1 year, and that wasn't a good idea. That didn't work. The Eagles have been as close to. I mean, they've been successful for years. They're always kind of one of those teams that they get to the playoffs. You can almost pencil them in every year. So they've had success. They've only had the one Super Bowl, as we all know, but they're routinely one of those teams that when they're down, they're not down for long. They kind of rise back up, and make another run. So it's been kind of close. I mean, I guess you could say the Sixers are a playoff team every year. I mean, they get to the second round just about every year. They're in the Final Four of the Eastern Conference every year. They just winning that seventh game has become the bane of our existence. It didn't, and our superstar just can't stay healthy every year. And now, like, half the team's sick. It's bad enough we don't have Embiid, but now we don't even know who's going to play game to game. It's really become. But I mean, can I say that they're not successful? No, because they get in every year. They get out of the first round most years. They get to a Game 7 in the semifinals, and then they lose, and then they lose, and then they lose again. And Kawhi Leonard makes a quadruple bounce shot, and we can never beat Boston. And we have trouble. Trae Young and his bad hair got us. We had guys that don't shoot. We have guys that miss free throws. We have guys that just don't play defense at the time of games where you have to. It's been a combined effort. one coach doesn't work, another coach doesn't work. Now we'll see what Nick. No, when we do, oh God, oh, you don't want to see me on social media if the Sixers ever win. You don't. You just for anyone who's giving me anything, you just want to turn that phone off. I remember everything. And the Flyers, listen, I mean, for a time there, I remember when Lindros and them, they were in the playoffs every year. They got to the one Cup final and got swept by the Red Wings, but they were like in the mix every year. And then they made that crazy run in 2010, and they're good at starting dynasties like Detroit, Chicago. Yeah. The Philly teams just have a way of starting other teams and having dynasties, but we are never a dynasty. It just doesn't. It's not meant to be. I guess the closest thing we ever had was the Flyers of the '70s, but I wasn't a thought at that time, and I would love to see them just once hoist that cup. But I like what they're building towards now, and I know it's going to take some time, but I think we're in good hands finally for our first time in a long time. But when you have those dynasties, like I said, man, you got to cherish them. If you're a fan of one of those teams, as much as I hated on Boston, and some of their teams just won't go away. It's like, could the Celtics just have a stretch of losing? Yes, have a stretch, right? The Bruins are usually good. I mean, the Sox have gone through a little tough time now. The Patriots have, they know what those losing seasons are now, don't they? Yeah, they forgot about that for a while, but now. But I mean, look, their fans were treated to so much. I mean, over their cups flowed over for how much they were treated to in those 2 decades of misery for everybody else. But but yeah, I mean, they can appreciate it, right? I mean, Adam, he every now and then he'll still say, yeah, but I had those years, and I'm like, yeah, you did, you did. So even as bad as it gets for some of their teams, they can always look back, right, and say, well, we were, decades of winning. I mean, yeah, right? I mean, even the Bay. I mean, look, I mean, I know the Niners, it's been since 94, and I know the Sharks haven't won, but, I mean, you had the Giants were a dynasty. Yeah, they got in our way once, too, but they were a dynasty. The Warriors, after all those years of losing, they became a dynasty. And that, for the most part, I mean, I know they got KD for a stretch there, but it was a homegrown team, right? You drafted well, you got the right coach, and you started winning. And yeah, I mean, it went on for quite a while, right? And we all know I'm a Steph fan, so I appreciate what they did. So yeah, you've had some great times, and just all-time memories, right? There's been some tough times too. There's been some losses and whatnot, but for the most part, there's been some good times there, with some of those teams. And the Niners, even though they haven't won, they're usually kind of in the mix, But I get it, and believe me, everyone wants to win. The truth is, as we know, only one team wins every year in each sport, and that's just how it is. As tough as it is, how many teams are there, right? 30-some teams basically in each sport. Only one of them gets to win, and the truly special ones can do it just about every year. But for others, it's like, yeah, I mean, what do we got to do to get on that mountaintop? What do we got to do? What do we, what mistakes are being made? How can we correct it, right? That's what being a fan is. And I know I'm not saying anything that others don't understand, but it's the ride. It's, you feel like you want to be a part of it, that you can make a difference sitting in a seat in a stadium, making noise, whatever it is. And some fans can do it, right? Some fan bases are known for it. I mean, I'm part of one. I know how we're perceived around the country, right? I still get blamed for things I didn't do. I wasn't around in the 60s for the Santa Claus thing, okay? I never threw a snowball. Now, if you wore a Dallas item, yeah, one might get tossed, but I wasn't there, right? I wasn't throwing batteries at JD Drew. I wasn't doing some of these dopey things that drunk fans can do. It happens everywhere. But the Philly fans get we have to wear it, when it happens here. Um, but I believe me, I know we all feel that we can make that difference, that we could do this, we can put the team over the top. And the unfortunate reality is most of the times it comes down to the players and the coaching, and it has to, you have to have that perfect scenario almost for it to happen. And so I get it. I get the pain. Believe me, if anyone knows pain for being a fan of teams, it's me. Our fan bases have they love to kick us. They get us so we get so close, and then believe me, I know, but I also believe it's always part of the ride, and sometimes you have to go through those. You're going to be tested, and you have to kind of overcome those tests. It's almost like the labors of Hercules, right? You're going to be tested with all these things, and if you can just get through it, you'll get your reward. We all want that reward, right? It's not just in sports; it's in anything. It's with jobs and life. We're always looking for that carrot at the end of the stick, and we want to get there so badly. And it's a tough thing, it really is, but it makes it worth it when you do. And believe me, the fan bases out there who haven't won a Super Bowl. I mean, I know fans of those teams, and I always tell them when you get it, or fans who haven't seen their team win, it's an incredible thing. It makes it all worth it. All fighting to fight all those years, it makes it worth it. It really does. And maybe some year I'll see the Sixers win or the Flyers, and it's just you think back of all those years where we came so close, or we stunk, didn't have a chance in hell, But it makes it worth it. It pushes you over that edge. And it's such an incredible thing. It really is. And some people are like, yeah, it's just sports, If you're not a sports fan, it's hard to describe, why it's important, why it means something. Maybe sometimes it means a little too much to fans like me. I wear the emotions on my sleeve. It's how I am. It's how I'm wired. I'm a fan the way I collect. I don't collect halfway. I don't be a fan halfway. I mean, I'm all in. I push all the chips in all the time. Whether it's good or bad. That's just who I am. That's my nature. I can't be something I'm not. And I know I get called on it a lot, and believe me, it happens. Sometimes Hyde comes out, with the sports. Some of us remember some of those times on social media with me, right? Yeah, it does. But I am a fan of these teams. I love these teams, whether through thick and thin, and I gotta be who I am, and that's just what it is. I collect other teams, jerseys and hats. I do, but the fandom, it's the Phillies teams all the way, and that's what will always be. And it's a point of pride for me. It is. I'm not one who believes you have to live in the area where your teams play to be a fan. I mean, my good buddy Big Slim, he's in Maryland. He's as big an Eagle fan as I know. And I know other fans that are like that too. I mean, Big John, in Mississippi, big time Bears fan. I mean, one of the biggest Bears fan you're ever going to find, right? Other fans in other areas there are fans of teams that live other places, But it is something for me. Like it was one of those things where, yeah, I mean, these teams are here, and I'm going to root for them, and it's tough. There's not a lot of championship banners behind me. It's just I have some there moments of the always be remembered, but most of the banners I have are for just conference titles or National League pennants or whatever. I only have the one for the World Series. I was too young for 80, so 08 is what I had. So but yeah, it's still a point of pride, and I love where I live, and I have a lot of pride for it. And people say things against the teams or whatever. I don't know. Is it wrong? Maybe, but I look at it as like a personal offense. Like, hey, you're talking about where I live. This is my home. and I'm going to defend my home, sometimes a little too much with other fans, but it's just one of those things, man. It's hard to describe to people who just don't get it. And I know I've been yapping on long here, but it's what I do. It's how it is. I do want to give a shout out to Rez. I know he did his 100th live over the weekend, the eve of Super Bowl Sunday. And it was a lot of fun. And Rez, it was his final live on his YouTube channel, and unless he does a surprise one here and there. But Rez offered a platform for years for Jersey heads like myself and other friends of his and whoever to come on and chit chat, and there were some very memorable moments. There were some interesting moments. I was a part of them, I know, but it was a lot of fun, and I know it was a lot of work for Rez, and I know I've told him this many times, and I know people told him that night. But Rez, again, thank you for all that you did for those lives and giving us all a platform to come on and speak our piece about various things, sports, collecting, pop culture, movies, whatever it was that the topics were, or just free talk, right? It was a lot of fun, and I was glad to be a part of it for those years. And you did a great job as the host and moderator. And I know it had to be a lot of work. And I know, it's taking a couple hours out once a week of whatever the schedule is that he had. But he did it like clockwork every week just about. And 100 episodes of that. That's something else. And, we had a lot of fun. There was a lot of laughs. There was a lot. We reminisced of some of those moments. It was interesting. In lives, you never know what can happen because it's live. Things can happen. So, and things did. Some very memorable moments, and but Rez, you did an amazing job with it. I was sorry to see it go, but I understand. Believe me, I understand. It's hard. People who don't do this don't understand. And just me making this video now, right? It's after work. I'm a little tired, but I'm like, you know what? I feel like doing a video. I'll just do a vid here for the Into Life series, talk a little about the Super Bowl, a little sports. I got a couple hats that I've been waiting a bit here to share. So, but I do want to give you another, pat on the back there, a good shout out for all your work that you did for those lives. And for offering us a forum to come on there and speak, once a week with you and just kick back and have fun, And I know there were some interesting moments that kind of went in other directions, but it was still a lot of fun, and I was glad to be a part of the 100th episode. It was good to talk to you and the others, and reminisce about the 100 episodes in the years. So great job by you. And, thanks again for that. End of an era. Those lives. End of an era. Anyhow, as I said, I have a couple hats here. I have a couple pickups. I know if you follow me on social media, you already know what one of them is. I shared it on Instagram and some of the groups on Facebook yesterday because I just got it in the mail. This other one I got in the mail late last week as well. It's hard. It's getting hard to find hats, old school hats for this team. And I know they brought this logo back some years ago as the Reverse Retro 1.0, but we got the it's a snap, so it's an old school snap, vintage hat here for the Florida Panthers. Good green under, very very nice. I want to say this is I think this is the Game or something like that. It's one of those old school brands. But a very old school snap right there. Still in very good condition. I like the two-tone and that, leaping Panther right there. So this will go with a couple Panther jerseys of mine, including the Reverse Retro 1.0. And then this one, certainly hits the heartstrings. My good buddy, the GOAT of mascots, in my opinion. The Philly Fanatic. This is the Toppers USA store. Philly Fanatic. They're doing a mascot theme, as I remember I did discuss this one in my vehicle vlog this weekend. And here he is, hitting a home run. Look at that swing right there. as I said on the Instagrams, I don't think he'll ever be confused with Ken Griffey Jr., but there you have it right there. And I like, also, they've done that for a few of the mascots. The contrail you see right there of the swing. Very cool, and you can see where the sweet spot hit the ball. There's the Fanatic. I like that metallic thread that they used. Just a beautiful hat. Very well done. It does have the Phillies word mark on the side. They did this for all the teams that they're making. Them four, a flat batterman there on the back. Total New Era. Flag right there, logo. Total black, and I really like the fact that this is an all-black hat because the logo looks just that much really nice. It really pops on an all-black background. So there you have it. Good green under. It's got the white cut. Now, as I said, I did size up when I got. Now, I can wear a 5/8. I can wear anywhere, and it fitted between a 3/8 and a 5/8. And I went with the 5/8 because I figured this one might hang just for a few seconds extra that I can get it. And sure enough, I was able to get it, and it came in the mail over the weekend. Super psyched to get it. It was one of those hats that moved pretty quick. Sorry for people who couldn't get it. Maybe they'll do another one. Maybe they'll do a pre-order. These hats are pretty popular, these mascot hats. So I wouldn't be surprised if Topper's USA store does a pre-order or maybe a shock drop down the road. But a great job by them. A huge shout out to them for this. Really well done. Their first representation of the Philly Fanatic hat. So you all hit it out of the park as he's hitting that right there. He's doing his Harper imitation right there. His good buddy Bryce, right? So, and as I said on my Instagram feed for this will be the first Phillies hat I wear at a game this year. Sometimes it's a hard decision. You know, I have a few Phillies hats, just a teensy bit, right? But sometimes it's hard. I want to figure out what's the first hat I'm going to wear to a game, right? Out of my plan. So it was not hard this year. I'm going to wear this one. This is going to be the first hat I wear to a Phillies game this year. So I look forward to that. So that's it. Those are my pickups. Just a couple hats. Like I said, I did take advantage of the 30% off deal Mitchell & Ness was having for a couple days over the weekend. And I got the St. Patrick's Day Dutch Dalton. And that should be coming in the mail this week, I would imagine. I know it got shipped. I got the shipping notification email, so I should be getting that. I usually try to get one new Phillies jersey right before the season starts every year. So I guess this is that one this year. There's others out there I would like to get, but over time. But I've been wanting that Dutch Dalton. I wanted to get it last year when it came out. It just didn't happen. Other things kind of got in the way, other jerseys and whatnot. And that just was not available in my size as the year went on. So I knew they had it on the website. And like I said, 30% and the paying for option with PayPal. Yeah, I made that one work. I fit that in. But like I said, I did sacrifice the Stadium Series flyers at that time. I'm still hoping it's still available this weekend. I see they're still available online. So worst comes to worst, if I have to get it after the game, I'll get it after the game. But I would like to get it, and I would like to get the Rangers too. I just like the look of it. It's one of those things that I know some people have panned it, but I like that NYR on the front. I like the font they used. And even as a Flyers fan, I shout out to Uncle Lou. There's a couple Ranger jerseys I do want to get. That one and the Lady Liberty, and some of the reverse retros that they've worn with the Lady Liberty on there. So there's a few Ranger jerseys that might be in the collection at some point. I don't know when, over time. But I would like to have the collection of the Lady Liberties and that NYR Stadium Series jersey. So they're going to don that this Sunday, I believe, against the Islanders. And the Flyers are playing Saturday evening against the Devils. So we shall see what we shall see. The Flyers usually don't do good in the outdoor games. They've only won one of them. So we'll see what happens this year. The Devils are scuffling a little bit. The Flyers have actually had a good week. So we'll see if that can continue on Saturday night. But I'm going to watch the game with Mark M. We're going to be going to a local sports bar to watch it, and we'll hope for the best. I know Mark's already. He's got his Stadium Series gear already. He was at the Flyers game this past Saturday night, saw a win against Seattle. So he had a good time. And for me, like I said, man, I look forward to watching the game with him, and we'll hope for the best. These outdoor games, they're tricky. But the Flyers have actually won some shootouts this year, so maybe the outdoor game they can win that too as an added bonus. But we shall see. We shall see. You never know. Um, Outside of that, I guess that's about it. I don't have big plans for pickups. I mean, obviously there's stuff on the hit list. There's always stuff on the hit list. I mean, who am I kidding? Always. That's just how it's going to be. When I get them, I don't know. We'll see. There are other things I'm looking forward to. I'm really looking forward to seeing the new Ghostbusters movie. I'm going to go to my buddy Slim's. We're going to watch that together. We saw Afterlife together some years ago. He came here. So now I'm going to his place. We're going to watch Frozen Empire. The trailer looks really good. Some of the nostalgia things from like the original is kind of in it, and I'm like, oh, this is. I really liked Afterlife. I know sometimes when you bring a franchise back after a long time, it could really be hit or miss. But I really like what they did with it. It brought some tears at the end. It really did. But Ghostbusters is one of my all-time favorite movies. Ecto-1 is my favorite movie vehicle, Hollywood vehicle. If ever, I couldn't own it because I wouldn't know what to do. I wouldn't know how to fix it if it broke down. But it is one of those vehicles. If I had like a dream car, it would be that. Driving around, I would have the siren. But But I that movie has always been one of my favorites, and when they brought it back, in Afterlife, I was intrigued. I didn't know what to expect, and I was really happy with it. Because sometimes those movies you just never know. They bring it back, and it's like, maybe they shouldn't have, but it was good what they did with it, and how they kind of revived the franchise. And I'm looking forward to seeing it. I really am, and I'm gonna go to my buddy Slips. We're gonna watch it. Because he's a Ghostbusters fan too, and we're gonna watch that together. And there's some others. There's some other movies that have like kind of, some of the old school stuff that's starting to come back. There's some movies that I don't know if I'll see in the theater, but I definitely will give it a watch when they come out, maybe for streaming or what have you. There's a movie that kind of has my interest just a bit, because I really like the original Twisters, which they showed a preview of last night in the Super Bowl. And I like Twister, like that movie, the original with Helen Hunt and Bill Paxton. Obviously, he passed away, so rest in peace to him. But I like that movie. That's the movie that I saw in the theater many, many years ago with some of my buddies from high school. We watched that movie together. And then I will always remember, I saw that movie, and one of the previews before that movie was Independence Day. And when we saw that movie together too, way back in the day. And it was an experience watching that one in the theater. It was the first movie I ever went to where people were like really involved in the movie, like clapping, applauding, the different scenes of the original Independence Day. But I remember seeing a preview for a trailer before Twister came on in the movie theaters, and we were like instantly, ooh, we have to see Independence Day. We're gonna go see Independence Day. So I think they both came out the same year. I mean, obviously they would have, right? So I think Twister came out in the spring. Independence Day came out obviously around Independence Day, and obviously Will Smith was so big back then. Will Smith and Goldblum and all that. We were like, ooh, we want to see this. This looks good. So that was a memorable movie year for me. But they're making, like, I don't know if it's supposed to be a sequel. I haven't seen any of the cast members from the original. I know some of them passed from Twister, but I'm like, all right, well, they're bringing this back, and there's more Twisters, it seems. This one, they're really going crazy with them now. So I want to see that. I know there's another Kung Fu Panda movie, which has a fox in it this time. Slim. one of the characters is a fox. So that might get a watch at some point. Some of the superhero movies coming out looks all right. There's some pretty decent ones coming out, I think. Frozen Empire. That's probably going to be one of the ones I look forward to the most seeing. Hope it's good. Hope it lives up to what the last one did. It's hard. I think sometimes when they start making too many, when they start going into directions they shouldn't, like the last Halloween movie. That one still hurt me. And I still have to see the most recent Saw, and my buddy's in it, Billy, the puppet. I have to see it. But I will. I will get around to the latest Saw movie. It's on my list on Amazon Prime. So my buddy on the trike there. I gotta. Yeah. I want to play a game. I remember for Halloween one year, I dressed up as the puppet, and I have an old school tricycle too. I dressed up as the puppet, and I showed up to work, and during the afternoon, before the end of the day, I put on the puppet outfit, and I came up with the tricycle. People were scared because there was an area where I worked in the building where there were these windows looking into I used to work in a lab, and there were these windows, and from the hallway you can look into, and the one person said all they saw was me wheeling down the hallway. You could see the puppet head coming down the hallway, and freaked her out. Oh man, my friends and we used to put on a haunted house on Halloween. We got too old for trick-or-treating. And the old house I used to live, we would do it. And that year, I did the puppet. I was on the tricycle, and I wouldn't move. The people would come, and I would look like a statue. I would look like a prop. And I'm just standing here with the holding. And they would, when they got close, then I would turn the head just slightly a little bit. Oh, it would freak them out. Oh, it would freak them out. They go running. But people enjoyed it. People really enjoyed coming to the house on Halloween, because I went crazy for it. I decorated everything. It was like one of the places to come to. Now anymore, it's hard. I can't do what I used to do back then. But anyhow, I've gone on here for over an hour. But I had a lot to talk about, I guess, and I had some pickups here to share in the hat game, and I guess that's going to do it for me. I believe it or not, I've run out of things to talk about. So anymore, I'm just rambling. So I'm going to go. I'm going to have some dinner. I think it's getting close to dinner time now. But you all take care. What do you always got to do, right? You got to leave those likes. Like, right? As much as we can. And make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Hit the bell icon to be notified of all future content from yours truly. An hour and 3 minutes of joy. That's what it is. Super Bowl 58 is now behind us. Now it's the off season, right? And the NFL never stops. So there's there's free agency. There's going to be the draft before you know it, and we're going to get into another season where the Eagles will start in Brazil. So the Chiefs are going to open this season on that Thursday night at home for banner night. And then the next night, the Eagles will have a home game in Brazil against the opponent to be still announced. But, you were to tell me some years ago I'll be watching the Eagles start a season in Brazil as a home team, I might not have believed it, but it's happening. No, I'm not going. I joked with Slim. I said, road trip. He's like, you're driving. I'm like, no. I'm going to watch that game from the old recliner here as I watch most of the games. We're starting in Brazil. That's crazy, man. With the NFL, they want that reach, right? They want. So anyhow, that's a memorable way to start a season. That's for sure. Next season, so we will see. Um, but anyhow, one season behind us. Before you know, it'll be another one. But we have basketball, hockey seasons still going, baseball season, pitchers and catchers in a few days. Let's go Phillies, right? Another season is almost upon us here. Before you know it, oh my goodness, I can't believe it's almost another season, but it's almost here. Um, so anyhow, you all take care. Thanks for all of the support as always to the channel, and I will see you again soon. And with whatever I can come up with here. All right, everyone, take care.